And we're live, everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. So can you hear me now? Please confirm.
Yeah, we can hear you. All good.
Okay. Okay. Malo so fu maua male langi ma talo fatu pa ia male malu wa fia mai. Greetings and welcome everyone to session 4. This is focusing on COVID-19 syndemic, multiple risks, response, and green recovery. I am Billy, your moderator for this session 4. And I'm from the Pacific Center for Environment and Sustainable Development, the University of South Pacific. I am a Samoan by blood, a citizen of Tuvalu, and a resident of Fiji, real meaning of regionalism. So on behalf of the organizing committee for this session, Miyako Fasau and Jennifer Stewart Manu from the International Federation for the Red Cross and Red Crescent, Nilesh Prakash from the Regional Pacific Nationally Determined Contribution Hub, and Ms. Anais from the Pacific Community. I would like to say Talofa, Bulavinaka, and welcome to you all. We're very happy to have you here with us. COVID-19 exacerbates Pacific Island communities' pre-existing vulnerabilities to health, climate change, disasters, economic inequalities, and they further complicate the achievements of sustainable development goal targets. And we have been facing multi-frontier wars and battles in a very complicated time and a very complicated situation. So the key questions for this session are, how could we respond and recover against COVID-19 and simultaneously addressing short and long-term synergies of local and global challenges that include epidemic, pandemics, and that's why we call it a syndemic. It's the synergies of all these problems, and they are affecting the resilience of our Pacific Island people. And the second question, the second key question here is, what are the lessons learned from the COVID-19 syndemic that will help us to co-create, reimagine, and rethink our COVID-19 response and recovery strategies to ensure a multi-hazard or multiple risk response and green recovery approach that will enable us to survive against COVID-19, combat against disasters and climate change, non-communicable diseases, nuclear waste, and a lot of other environmental pollution. So those are the most important fundamental questions for this session. And today, we are very privileged to have a lot of experiences and expertise from our panelists and also some of our speakers in the video, and our speakers in the video, and they will share their stories, and we will explore the wisdom, actions, and leadership of our Pacific people in leading the response against COVID-19 and other health, social, cultural, economic, environmental challenges, both at home, community level, island level, country level, and the world. And I'm very happy to hear the plenary session this morning. It was very inspiring to hear from some of our inspirational Pacific leaders and their messages to look within and focus on home. And it's not just starting at home, but also nurturing home. So, and it also reminds me of our Pacific warrior, the late Honorable Tony DeBroom from the Republic of the Marshall Islands, that he always say, when we save the Pacific, we save the world. So everything has to start from here, from home. So the first part of this session, we will first show you a video, reflections from some of our youth, what they think of the COVID-19 syndemic, and looking at multiple risk response and green recovery. And for your information, this video is dedicated to all the youth of the Pacific that have been impacted negatively by the COVID-19. And it's also very inspirational to know these youth as well are also leading the multiple risk response and green recovery. And then we have 4 online panelists representing regional, national perspectives, communities, and also the youth. And they are the voices of the people, the trees, the mangroves, coral reefs, fishes, soil, the air, water, and the vanua. So it's very important they are here with us. And each speaker will have opening remarks for 2 minutes, followed by a discussion and sharing of experiences from the field. So before we take off, make sure you post any question or comments on the chat function right in front of you. And when you have a question, you identify the panelists you are asking your question to, or if your question is targeting all the panelists. And I encourage you as well to provide any question on the Q&A function right on top. And we will use those questions to contribute to the discussion. And your comments and discussion points will be considered for the recommendations for the outcome document and action plan that will come out of the session and also the overall meeting. Now, we are starting our video shortly, so listen and enjoy.
Yakwe Alup, greetings from the Marshall Islands. My name is Toby Aperam. I'm working at the National Disaster Management Office here in the Marshall Island, and I'm so very glad, and it is my honor to be part of this discussion, to share my views and experiences and thoughts on the main agenda that we are going to discuss today. What I am thinking here in related to the green and environmentally friendly in our preparedness activities is to consider the protection of the environment in constructing facilities, for example, isolation centers and quarantine centers. And those activities might need a lot of work, a lot of effort, especially in using huge or big machineries, and those machineries might produce pollutions, and they might pollute our environment as well. To clear the area for construction, and that might also affect the environment as well. And I am strongly suggesting if we can persuade our local leaders to consider in their higher discussion or higher dialogue discussion to include those kind of issues in their main agenda as well, to make sure to acknowledge them and reflected in their policies that they will make for the country.
Naka everyone, I am Salote and I'm a master's candidate here at the University of the South Pacific. One of the vulnerabilities and hardships faced at home during COVID-19 is unemployment. This eventually led to a sudden increase in overexploitations of natural resources, especially for coastal communities, where they break marine protected area restrictions because of the need to feed their families. This is important as a part of the post-COVID-19 response to support SDG goal number 2, zero hunger. A sustainable approach in response to COVID-19 and food security is critical in preparedness actions for the future to prevent having negative impacts to the environment. Food security plays a vital role on the economic recovery of an individual, a community, and eventually a nation. Together we can, because we are always stronger together. Vinaka.
Hi everyone, my name is Sinala Meltasal. I'm 20 years old and I am a youth of Vanuatu Red Cross Society. Vanuatu is a country situated on a ring of fire which makes us vulnerable to disaster and climate change. After the response of TC Harold seeing so much plastic bottle all over the place made me think of the importance of keeping our environment clean. Thus, our health and resources such as water and food are influenced by our environment. We must take action in keeping our environment healthy and clean so we can live a healthy and clean life and our future generation may see and not only live a healthy and clean life but keep our environment clean as well. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much to our wonderful speakers there on video. So I want every one of us to put our hands together. We do it the Pacific way. If this is not a COVID-19 time, we will all be clapping by now. So another way to cope with COVID-19, we just acknowledge everyone there. So we need to put our hands together. And if you can't do that, we do it like the Fiji Sevens, just tap the shoulders like it was like this when they score a try. Thank you very much to Mr. Abraham from the Republic of Marshall Islands, and also to Siniela from Vanuatu, and Salote from Fiji. So before we move to our speakers, there are three important things we need to remember before we move on to the next discussion. From the video, it is very important to consider the health of the environment. That is the key to sustainability of all our resilience efforts. And consider the environment not only in short-term decisions to respond against a cyclone and to reduce those plastics and waste, but also in the long-term future when dealing with all the multiple issues we have. And I think the second important thing there is that one way forward is to include the local decision makers in discussions and also creations of policies. And I think it's very inspirational to hear from our young people, because they are the leaders of now and also the leaders for the future. So now we move on to our panelists. Just to step back a little bit. So this is how we're going to run this. First, we're going to have a short 2 minutes opening remarks from each speaker. And then we move on to the second part where we will have the question and answer part of this session. So our first speaker, we are very privileged and honored to have here with us, the chairman of the NBC Hub Steering Committee, and we have Tuti Chilton from Palau. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. And you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks to tell us about your role and your organization, and especially whether you are happy to be here with us, because we are really, really glad to have you with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Billy. I hope everything is going well with you around the Pacific and around the world during this pandemic, syndemic issues that we have. So I'm very happy to be here and joining you. It's a kind of a rainy day here in Palau, but rain always brings good blessings. So again, my name is Tuti Chilton. I am currently the Executive Director for the Palau Energy Administration. Since 2020, I have been blessed and been allowed to be the chairman of the Regional Pacific NDC Steering Hub Committee. The Regional Pacific Nationally Determined Contribution Hub, in short, the NDC Hub, is dedicated regional dedicated facility that was set up by our leaders to help provide a wide range of services to Pacific Island countries to advance the implementation of the nationally determined climate pledges, or the NDCs. Our goal is, of course, mitigation to keep lowering the temperature to 1.5 based on our agreement with the Paris Agreement. But the most important thing is our collective work that will help us maintain and help our Pacific societies, our people, our children, and our future. So I am very honored today to be able to speak on behalf of 14 Pacific Island countries who are members of the Pacific NDC Hub. I'm very delighted to share my thoughts on the opportunity for climate change and how it presents the opportunity for green recovery, given the lingering effects of COVID-19 pandemic on our economies and our people. With this session, I'm hoping that we give some information that gives us a very hopeful perspective to the future. So thank you very much, Billy, and I turn it back over to you. Billy, I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry, I was muted by those people there, not myself. Yep, I was saying that thank you very much, Chairman, and it's very good to have you with us so that we can look at the linkages between our national actions in order to fulfill our ambitions all the way up to the Paris Agreement and the global level. So thank you very much. Our next panelist, we have the safeguarding and monitoring and evaluation specialist from mainstreaming of rural development and innovation, Tonga Trust NGO. From the Kingdom of Tonga, we have Crystal Ake here with us. So over to you, Crystal, to further introduce yourself and your organization and your role, as well as sharing with us if you are happy to see me and all of our people here. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Let's see if I can start my video. All right, I guess you can only hear me. I can't start my video, but malo lele from Tonga. My name is Crystal, and as Dr. Iese had previously stated, I am a safeguard coordinator and an M&E coordinator. So I like to think of myself as like the flower of Morty, where I wear a lot of petals. And so under my safeguard, I have gender, disability, and also climate change and disaster risk management. And under the M&E, I have M&E and also a lot of knowledge management, which falls under a lot of communication works. So all of the PR that you see from Morty on social media, that was being generated by yours truly. I am honored to be part of this discussion and this panel alongside a very distinguished panel. And I am elated to see you, Dr. Iese, and to be here today and be part of this discussion. I work with Morty, which is a local NGO here in Tonga. So we're engaged with 122 communities that are in the rural and remote outer islands of all of the 4 island groups that make up the Kingdom of Tonga. And so we're engaged with 2 components where we are trying to develop community development plans. And the second pillar of our work also is to establish pathways into sustainable economic livelihoods. And so mainly our avenue of intervention comes through agriculture and innovation. And so we're engaged with tax allotments and homestead gardens, and also handicrafts, where we can establish sustainable economic livelihoods for the women. So that I'll stop there because there's a lot of discussions that we'll go further into, but thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's very good. And I'm very happy that you are happy to join us. I think we are privileged to have you, and you bringing a lot of expertise and experience to share from the community level and also the civil society, and most importantly, to bring in that inclusivity of the mainstreaming and inclusion of gender into all of resilience activities. Thank you very much, and malo opito, Crystal. And our next panelist, we're very happy to have here with us representative from the Kiribati National Youth, from the Kiribati Red Cross, the representative from the Kiribati Red Cross. We have Suri Tanta here with us. Mauri Suri, and could you please explain a little bit about yourself and the organization you represent, and how you're feeling joining us today? Thank you. Korapa, korapa. Could you please explain a little bit about yourself and the organization you represent, and how you're feeling joining us today? Thank you. Korapa, korapa.
Mauri,
Mauri Suri, over to you.
can you hear me? Can you hear?
Yep, I can hear you.
Mauri, my name is Suri, and I'm a volunteer at the Kiribati Red Cross Society for 7 years, and also I youth. And
Go ahead, Suri. I think someone is replaying my voice at the background there. I think they really like hearing it. But go ahead. I can hear you loud and clear.
And I'm a volunteer at the Kiribati Red Cross Society for 7 years, and also I youth representative on the Kiribati Red Cross as the National Governing Board.
Hi, Suri. I think if you turn the volume down on the session that's playing in the background, you can start speaking.
Youth representative on the Kiribati Red Cross as the National Governing Board.
Hi, Suri. I think if you turn the volume down on the session that's playing in the background, you can start speaking.
Suri,
Yeah.
whoever is controlling the hub in Kiribati, can we get back to you? I will, while you fix that, please, to our technical team. And we move on to introduce our next panelist, and then we will get back to you. Suri, I apologize for that technical issue, but we will get back to you. I hope that's okay. Andy, is that all right? Okay, so we move on to our next panelist. We have here with us the manager of the IFRC Disaster Law and Advocacy in the Pacific. We have Meyapo Fasau. Meyapo, so over to you for your opening remarks. The same questions as the others, to the other panelists as well. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Vidi. Apologies, and if you can turn on my video, please. So my name is Meyapo Fasau. I work for the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent, working out of Fiji. And we support the national societies within the Pacific. And through those national societies, we provide support to their governments. And I'm part of the larger International Disaster Law Program for IFRC. And we have IFRC colleagues supporting other regions with their work within the Pacific. We have supported Vanuatu, some support to Nauru in the past with their legislation. Currently supporting Fiji with the review of their law since 2018, and also providing support to PNG. And please do visit our booth for IFRC, and you will see more material there that you can go into in relation to disaster law. We have had a lot of work in the Pacific since 2010, and we've also provided support to Samoa to include PGI or gender inclusiveness within their disaster law plan. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Meyapo. It's very good to have you in the session. It's good to provide the angle of how important the legislations or legislating all these approaches in each country. So your contribution is very valuable. We want to return back to Kiribati. Suri, I hope the connection is improving. Suri, can you hear me? I hope the connection is improving there, and you introduce yourself again. Okay, I think the team in Kiribati is trying to fix the technical challenge. Well, this is expected given that we are meeting online, and these are some of the challenges we expected, and I know that our team will deal with it. So we're going to move on with our panel. When it comes later on, when the system is fixed, then we will return to Suri.
Hey, Vili, I think Turi is coming online now.
Okay. Yay. So that's very good. Suri, over to you. Suri, can you hear me?
Oh, it looks like she's left the room.
Well, keep on checking with Suri, please. We will get back to her. So yes,
yeah, no
so thank you. So we will continue on with our panel discussion, and I think the first question here lining up is to Tuti Chilton from Palau. And the question is, it's very important for you to enlighten us on some ways of promoting the green recovery approach through climate action and implementation of climate pledges under the Paris Agreement. If you could provide us some examples as well from the work of the NDC hubs and also Palau, if you could. Over to you, sir.
you very much, Willie, and I hope we can get Trudy back online from Kiribati. Let me just quickly kind of give you a quick understanding from the NDC Hub's perspective and my perspective on green recovery. It is a term that's been used widely now in terms of measures that will address the social, economic, and political consequences of COVID-19 as it relates also to the crisis in a way that sets course for long-term structural reforms and transformative shifts towards sustainability, biodiversity protection, resilience, and climate neutrality. So from a simple perspective, in terms of green recovery, it means how are we in each of our islands responding to this crisis, this climate crisis? And how are we creating jobs and income for individuals? For good or for bad, we're now becoming more globalized. So we are able to be in Palau, Suri's able to be in Kiribati, and we're able to do this Pacific Resilience meeting online. So at the end of the day, how are we doing that to make sure that individuals in our communities are sustainable? And sustainable meaning create a new opportunity for them in terms of industries, as well as creating opportunities for them to have some sort of income that comes into their individual uses, not just to deal with the social issues of climate change and of course sea level rising. The issue that we're looking at now is from the NDC Hub, of course, is solar. Solar is a investment that we're looking at to help us in each individual countries to deal with this issue of decarbonization, as well as be able to hopefully create industries in each of our communities. The other example that I'm thinking about and looking at in the Pacific, outside of just tourism, outside of fisheries, is also possibility of green hydrogen. This is something that helps us along the path to 2050, when the Pacific Islands have agreed possibility of fossil fuel-free islands that we have. So those are just two kind of specific examples of how do we use this example or this experience of COVID-19 to allow us to create new opportunities for our islands, and at the same time be able to look into our own communities and see what is useful that we can go ahead and use in conjunction to what the global economy is forcing us to deal with. So I will leave it at that, and we can have more discussions from the other panels. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you very much, Tuti. Very good insights there. And also I like the solution focus that you are bringing on here in your response. It's not just looking at COVID-19 and all the challenges and all the negatives that we have encountered so far, but also looking at the opportunities that this pandemic is providing for us to look at other alternatives. And I think it's the same way we are approaching climate change issue as well, the climate change issue as well. So thank you for that. Just before we move to Bristol, to the given now we are not flying anymore, given that we are meeting online and we're not emitting many greenhouse gases. Do you think that after the COVID-19, will you encourage us to continue this way in order to save our planet? Sorry, Tuti.
Apologies. Can you repeat the question again, Billy?
Oh, sorry, Tuti. It was a follow-up, given that we are now meeting online and there's a lot of Zoom meeting. We are not traveling for conferences and all these things, so we are not burning a lot of greenhouse gases from our side of things. So post-pandemic, would you encourage continuing meeting online and to ensure that we reduce our emissions?
Thank you. Apologies for delaying response. Yes, technology is a tool like all technologies. We should take advantage of it. But keep in mind, everyone talks about the Pacific Way, and sometimes Facebook or this kind of interaction is good, but face-to-face is even better. I can feel responses and individuals if I'm with you on a one-on-one basis. But in terms of resources that we have in the Pacific, I think this is a great way to remind us that we don't have to meet like twice or 3 times a year. We can actually meet once every 2 years. And this is a way for us to limit our cost, collectively pool our resources together, and still be able to get the same thing that is needed to be done if we were face to face. But it's not just in terms of climate change. This now goes a long way towards in terms of human capacity building, education, sharing of ideas instead of just going to a conference and talk about these things. Now I'm able to talk to everyone all at once from your comfort of your particular island, and allow us to share more in depth and more time. The only issue is, of course, Kiribati is a different time zone, Fiji is a different time zone, and plus different time zone. So that's the only other thing. But I do encourage it as a way to meet and continue to find new ways to make connections in a post-COVID world, and hopefully limit our own emissions that we have. So yes, I will leave that at that, really, and turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Tuti. That is really important message moving forward. Crystal, how is multiple risk response and recovery approach important, and how can this help inform the preparedness and early action for green recovery? A perspective from the community, please.
Dr. Yese. So I'm just going to talk about the works that Morty does. And so, as I had alluded to before, the 2 pillars that our work is predicated on is community development plans. And so our interventions has to be community driven. It's from the community themselves. And so when we get together through a participatory approach, we're allowing for, as you said, inclusivity for people with differing backgrounds, race, creed, color, and whatnot, to come together and talk about the vulnerabilities of their communities. And it's from there that they start to prioritize their development needs. And that starts to address how it is that we're going to go about building resilience within the community. So we cover a lot of sectors, and because it's community driven and it's not explicitly written in their community development plans, because it's not a climate change framework, it's a development tool. But most of these needs that these people of the communities prioritize, at the crux of it is climate change, disaster risk, vulnerabilities. So some great examples are a lot of these rural communities want to develop in the water sector. And so we're addressing this by trying to build their resilience towards the the environmental degradation and climate change and disaster risk by addressing such issues. But it's also pretty relevant to the conditions of today. Yes, we don't have any known cases of COVID in Tonga yet, but in preparation for that, we are still rolling out awareness campaigns to the communities to engage them in safety, water management, hand sanitizing, and sanitation and hygiene overall. So the work that we're doing in the community development plans is a great example of how much of the risks that the communities are identifying covers a broad sector. It's not just to one where it's just agriculture or where it's just water. And it teaches us a fundamental lesson where we should not be operating in silos, where we should get together and work together to address the vulnerabilities and try and get these rural remote communities to essentially develop it. It's a great way to address how we are responding to preparedness and especially into recovery. So Morty, while it's working in the areas of community development plans, while we're looking at ways where we can engage with sustainable economic livelihoods for everybody in these communities, when disaster happens, it's immediately puts a stop to our work. And so we also put on our other, as I said before, our petal of flower, and we become humanitarian. So we engage in a humanitarian effort to the communities because our work with development is immediately stopped while we're trying to address these issues that have happened post-disaster. The work that we have done so far when we're looking at women is we're engaging a lot with home gardens. So we're enabling women who don't want to travel out into the tax allotments where a lot of men have their plantations, is that we're teaching them that yes, you can have your home gardens at home. And so should there be a lockdown, there is access to food there and then without having to wait. We're learning a lot of these lessons that are coming out from Fiji during the lockdown and all these COVID cases. And so this is just something that we're able to do on the ground that is affordable for the people, where they're not breaking their wallet, they're not breaking their bank to try and set up anything that is highly complex. They're utilizing whatever that it is that's around you. And a lot of things you can see is the use of organic matter. And it's the same thing that we're teaching for men at the top, that their tax allotments, that we're distributing a lot of cultivars where it is pest and climate resilient. It has short harvest life cycles like the Peruvian maniocs. And we're also turning back to traditional indigenous knowledge processes where our ancestors were very conscious of the environment. We were caretakers of the land. And so we had just finished an activity where we had this training for carving of outrigger canoes for the men. So we're again increasing access to nutritious foods for the people and sort of building that resilience where we're weaning people off of reliance to imported foods, which again goes back to perpetuating our vulnerabilities in the health sector. Mindful of the time, I'm going to stop there, but yeah, so that's what we're doing. Thank you, Dr. Yazid.
Well, thank you very much, Crystal. I think that is very valuable. It's a multi-frontier approach, not just the community, but also the organization itself. And it's good that there is learning there. I think well, because we are running out of time, we'll give the opportunity to our final speaker, Meyapo, because he's also from the Red Cross, to share some thoughts on what is the importance of legislating a multiple risk approach to disaster risk management, addressing the pandemics, green recovery, and what is the role of the Pacific Resilience Partnership in addressing this? Over to you, Meyapo.
Thank you very much, Vili. So we are part of the Pacific Resilience Technical Working Group for Risk Governance, which brings together the NDMOs and NEMOs in the Pacific, as well as the Attorney General's offices. One of the studies that we have conducted under this technical working group is the public health emergency study for the Pacific. There's an international one and there's a regional one. And we are trying to finalize that presently, and we will be taking it to consultations. We've already done consultations on the study for these 8 countries. However, new developments has prompted the need to stay on finalizing the study as soon as possible, so that we can look at a few new policies and laws that may come into being, as well as provide some guidance. I think one of the key things that came out in a number of the discussions today is from our colleague in Marshall Islands, when he was talking about carbon emissions for the machineries, and he was talking about deforestation. You're talking about land transport laws, you're talking about environmental laws, you're talking about forestry legislation. When our colleague Tuti was talking about solar energy, you're talking about customs, levies, on promotion of exemptions or concessions on these type of consignments when they come through. Our colleague Crystal has talked about the work at the community. This prompts the need, I guess, for us to discuss that laws do need to set out a risk governance approach that is not just at the national level, subnational, right down to the community level, to provide that enabling environment for the actors who are supporting at that level. A key thing that comes out of all these discussions as well is looking at risk information. So our speaker on the video from Vanuatu was speaking about how Vanuatu is the most vulnerable country in the world. For 11 years now, since 2011, studies have shown that Vanuatu is the most vulnerable in the world. Tonga has been second, has been third last year, but it's been second up to this date as well. So risk information is very important. Climate risk, disaster risk, all the different laws deal with different types of risks. And I think one of the key things that we need to look at here is the roles and responsibilities and bringing all of these different risks together to be managed in such a way that we identify the roles and responsibilities of every actor, not only in government or the sectors, but especially also within society in relation to managing these risks and also finding the interventions that is needed to address vulnerabilities that we identify through the collection of these various risks. Talking about public health emergencies, one of the issues that we will find if we're looking at it is the fact that the international health regulations does set up mechanisms for reporting, especially when you have diseases in country that can cause pandemics that are contagious. But sometimes these are not integrated into your larger DRM framework. And that sometimes causes issues in relation to integration within the disaster risk management sphere, which can also then set us back when we're talking about integration of DRR and climate change. The importance of legislation is that all our different areas of society and actions are governed by some law, and they will have some risk. We need to integrate risk in terms of disaster risk, climate risk, just like how we form a budget to address the implementation and all the preparedness. Thank you very much, Didi.
Thank you, Mayako. I think I like the way you link the need for legislation to all the major components from our panel, from our panelists. I think that is very important for us to look at it. Often I don't know if it's ignorance or we neglect or we don't think much about it, the updating of our legislations and creating legislations or legislate a lot of the standards and things in order to make them more sustainable in terms of operation. So thank you very much for bringing this valuable perspective in the discussion. Just before we complete, I just want to revisit Kiribati. Suri, if you are still there, could you please elaborate or just provide some examples of the work the youth is doing in Kiribati to address COVID-19 and climate change? Mauri Suri, Kowara. Yep. So over to you, Suri. If you could give us some examples of the work you and the youth are doing in Kiribati to address COVID-19 and also climate change. Suri.
You can hear me? You can hear me? Oh, sorry. You can hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, so can you give an example, please? To end our discussion, it would be nice to hear an example from Kiribati of the work of the youth to address COVID-19 and climate change, please.
Okay. Right? Dr. Pika.
Our youth have been we all started
Okay.
And we have 1 more minute, Suri.
we all started because climate change.
Right. Sorry. We all start.
We
we all start Kiribati climate change youth forum. Youth forum involving youth from different youth groups. This forum is just an introductory to climate change. We also do awareness to the awareness to the public during COVID-19 through trauma and TikTok, community visits, cleaning up campaign, and also our message and are being sent through the media, TV, radio, and Facebook. With those activities that we did in our society, I know that they help everyone now know their roles when it comes to climate change and COVID-19.
That's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing. Those are the activities that we've been doing now as a Red Cross youth in Kiribati.
Thank you very much, Korap. That's really good. You wanted to say something else, please, before we wrap up?
We're just sorry that we got dropped off because our code does not work. So we just got in just in the last minute, and it was nice. It is an honor to be representing our youth in the Red Cross and sharing what we've been doing as a Red Cross youth and also as Kiribati youth.
Thank you very much, Korap. I think that is very important, and we are also honored to have you and Suri speak to us and share these very important messages, solution-focused approaches as well from the youth. So thank you very much, Suri, for sharing your thoughts with us. So 30 seconds for any additional thoughts from our panelists. Any quick question? 30 seconds. So we have 25 seconds more left. Okay, so I am sure we will continue the conversation.
I'd just like to say from the NDC Hub, I want to reiterate that we need to keep our people. Okay. I just want to say, I just want to make sure we keep our people, especially the young people, the young women, individuals in our discussion. When we talk about national level developments in green recovery, we have to keep them in mind because those are the most vulnerable people in our community. So I just want to leave it at that. In terms of resilience, we cannot be resilient if we don't have resilient people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for bringing that people focus and the people centric component in the conversation, and I think that is very important. So to wrap up this session, firstly, there is very clear that COVID-19 has exacerbated a lot of other pre-existing issues in our communities. The most important part of the session is that there is a lot of work that's already built even before COVID-19 that help build our resilience against COVID-19 and also climate change, waste management and all the other issues and other health issues, food security and environmental degradation. The other important thing is that there is a lot of willingness and the leadership from our youth in understanding the value of managing the environment and conserving or protecting the environment, not just for now, but also for the future, is paramount. And I think that leadership is an inspiration to every one of us. There is also very important leadership from the national level, as demonstrated by